So, My Hero Academia Chapter 311 is officially out, and let me just say this. When it comes to this chapter, there's a lot to discuss about it. We could discuss how All for One lacks soul. We could talk about the new assassin that Deku has to go up against. Or we could talk about this one guy that literally set the story in motion indirectly. Or we can talk about all three. So yeah, we're going to be talking about all three in this video, right after the intro. Hey guys, how's it going? It is your boy, Big Blue Drew 97 here, coming at you with another My Hero Academia discussion video, this time discussing Manga Chapter 311, titled Here We Go. And yes, we do go in this chapter, because there's a lot to really discuss in this chapter. We're going to talk about a lot of it, mainly into three topics. Actually two, but we're going to get three, and that third one, I saw it and I saw what that could imply for the story, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to talk about this in a video. So yeah, in this video I actually want to go over mainly about One for All for One, and when it comes to the dialogue and the conversation that Hawks, Bex, Genus, and Endeavor had about All for One and the implications that could come from it, as well as the ending of this chapter with the reveal that the woman that we saw in Tartarus is going to be the next villain that Deku is going to face. So I want to discuss a little bit more on that in this video. And before we get more into the discussion, I'd like to ask you, if you haven't done so, to subscribe to my YouTube channel if you'd like to see My Hero Academia discussions. I try to do discussions of the chapter as soon as they come out, if not the day after. So if this is the content that you like and you like my content prior, you're probably gonna like this video, so subscribe for more content like this. And without the way, let's get right into the discussion. So let's start off with the ending of this chapter, where we get to see this female individual. And if you remember correctly, this is the same female individual that we saw during the time where All for One broke out of Tartarus using Shigaraki's body and broke his old self out of jail. We saw that there was a few familiar characters that were in Tartarus that were free. We saw Muscular, who is now defeated. We had Moonfish, who we don't know where he is, but most likely he's out in the world cutting people up with his teeth. And we also got to see Overhaul. But right before we actually get to see Overhaul, which we also see Overhaul in this chapter most likely, it's most likely Overhaul because he doesn't have any hands or arms, and we just see his sleeves just flowing in the wind. But we also get a slight image of this one female who freed Overhaul from his prison. We didn't know who she was at first, but we get a kind of like guess on what she is, as Deku in this chapter said that it was a hired gun sent by All for One, which most likely means that she has a direct connection to All for One because he was the one that freed her from Tartarus. But that most likely when it comes to her quirk and what she does, and the reason why she was probably put in Tartarus, is that most likely she is an assassin, and that is very obvious from the fact that she has a sniper rifle coming out of her right elbow, and you can tell that it's coming out of her right elbow because you can literally see her arm folded up against her forearm. So it's very interesting to see this, and some people may say like, oh, because Overhaul is there, maybe he like modified her body to do this, and I'm like, sure. But I think this is more likely her quirk, because we have seen in My Hero Academia of people having like weird quirks that modify their body. Heck, in Class 1B, you have like the lizard lady, if I remember her name, Tsukage, who's able to literally like separate her body into pieces, and if a piece gets blown up or destroyed, she can just grow it back. So we do have characters that have like the ability to like modify their limbs in a way. Heck, Muscular can modify his body to grow more muscle fibers. So it's not out of the range of idea that she can generate a sniper rifle from her body, because we've seen other characters generate other organic things from her body, as well as like when it comes to the sniper rifle, if you look at it like very carefully, you can see like yeah, there are some different like aspects of it. It has a muzzle, it has like a long like way for the bullet to travel. But you can also see that what it's being supported on, it looks more like muscle fibers or some type of like eternal like membrane keeping it in place, showing that it is something that is coming directly from our body and it can't be something that overall created. So it's very interesting to see that this is most likely her quirk, but we still don't know exactly what it was. It could be specifically that she can create a sniper rifle coming out of her right arm, maybe she could make it out of her left arm, or maybe what I'm thinking is actually happening with this one person, which unfortunately we don't know her name, but we're probably going to get it revealed in the next chapter, is that her quirk may be sort of like an armory type quirk, where she's able to make certain weapons out of her body. She may be able to get a sniper rifle out of her elbow, but like a shotgun like out of the palm of her hand, or just a normal pistol shooting out of her fingers. She may be able to even create like small like blades out of her muscles, like out of her legs. She may have like a bomb in her chest, and that has nothing to do with the fact that she has 2 massive bombs on her chest as well as on her side, weirdly enough. So most likely she's the one that also blew up All Might's car, because as you see on the side of her, hopefully I have an image up here, is that she has these like small containers on her side that may be ammunition for her. It very looks like the type of bombs that we saw All Might's car get blown up with. But we also know that she also has the ability to shoot out microphones to communicate with people from long distance. So when it comes to this individual, it's very interesting to see that this is going to be probably one of the very few fights from Deku, or really any like class 1A or really pro hero, where they have to fight someone from a distance. And when I mean from a distance, I mean he's going to most likely fight this woman. I'm just gonna call her Sniper Lady. Deku's gonna have to fight Sniper Lady from a distance. We may see more of him using Air Force to target her from a distance, but it could be very likely that she's too far away. We don't know how far away she is, but because she's a sniper, she could be like 100, like not 100 miles. She could be like 2 or 3 kilometers away. She could be 5 kilometers away, or she could be like maybe 100 meters away. We just don't know, because we just don't know like how the landscape is of where they are. But this is one of the very few times where we're going to see the pro hero, the protagonist, the individual having to go up against someone that fights from a distance. And it's going to be very interesting. Most likely we're going to see a whole lot of dodging, a whole lot of weaving. We may even get the reveal of Deku's other quirks and how they may factor into fighting her. He could, something I suggested in the reviews, that he could use smokescreen to like cloud his area, so that he can probably get closer to her or prevent her from hitting him. But she could just as likely have modified her body, because we also see overall here, there's this theory that overall, even though he's lost the ability to use his arms, that he could use his feet to basically like reform and put things back together. So maybe her eyes have been changed to the point where you can see at night. We just don't know. But most likely what's going to happen is that Deku's going to have to fight her from a distance, and possibly overhaul is going to come in for more close like quarters combat. So that's kind of what I'm thinking with this. It's just going to be very interesting to see this female villain go into action, because we don't really get a whole lot of like female villain versus pro heroes. The only real example that we really have is like with Toga, and I guess Vibrava. Is it Vibrava? No, it's not Vibrava. It's La Brava, with La Brava. But this is probably going to be like a very, also, you know, with the Paranormal Liberation Front, but it's very rare to see like a female villain go up against like really other heroes. So this is just in its essence going to be a very cool and interesting fight, and I can't wait to see more of it. Now, going from that, this is a small detail that I saw, and by what I mean I saw it on Twitter, and we have this one image. It's a very small, very tiny image of this one guy who talks about, he brings up the idea that Shigeraki is looking for someone else that isn't like the pro heroes, isn't Endeavor, and that Endeavor is once again lying to the people and hiding something from them, which, as I said in the review, it makes sense for why they're hiding it from them, because they don't want to put that pressure on Deku, especially since like they're already using Deku for bait, and even though this is Deku's idea, they don't want to put any more pressure on him, because if Hero Society realized that, oh, this is what Shigeraki is after, there may be people's like, okay, let's protect Deku. There could be people's like, okay, let's just give him to Shigeraki and hope that he stops. Or 3, they could be like, okay, if he has a quirk that can be transferred over to like one of the pro heroes, and then they can take on Shigeraki. There are different ways that it could go wrong if it's revealed to society, but mainly Endeavor is trying to protect Deku. But the reason why I bring this up is because even though it's this guy who brings up this argument, someone pointed out that he looks very familiar to another individual in the story that we saw, and that individual is Twice's, Jin Bubagawara's employer that fired him because of an accident that he really didn't cause. Oh gosh, an accident ruining someone's life. Wow, that is so unrelatable whatsoever. But yeah, someone pointed out that this guy may be the same person, and that kind of makes sense because in this chapter, in 311, this guy seems to be a little bit older. You can see that he's balding a little bit, but Jin Bubagawara's like boss, he seems to be a little bit younger. He seems to have all of his hair, but the real like interesting thing is that he has the antenna. And when it comes to My Hero Academia characters, yeah, they are very unique and very like specific. The reasoning why people think that Ujiko was Deku's doctor at the beginning of the story is because they look very similar. And when it comes to My Hero Academia, where you can have a character like Shoji with dupla arms looking very weird, as well as you have a character like Kota whose ability is anim voice, but he has like a peak on his head, and the fact that you have Throppy that's a frog, and you have a Spinner that's a gecko. Yeah, if a character looks very similar to another character, it's most likely the same character, because when it comes to Hirokoshi, these character designs are pretty much deliberate, and it's most likely deliberate that this guy is supposed to be that representation of Jin Bubagawara's like boss who fired him, which is very interesting because if you view it in that vein, think of like everything in the story that has happened that is connected with Twice. The fact that his quirk is able to make clones, which we know for a fact that clones have been used a lot in the series and are main contributors to how the League of Villains has done evil in the past. We also know for a fact that if it wasn't for like this dude firing like Jin firing Twice would have gone crazy, which means that the incident at the Paranormal Liberation Front where Twice's like ability really came into play and basically was like the changing factor in that war, as well as the fact that Twice's death in the Paranormal Liberation Front war arc also played a part in like changing the sway of how this fight was going to end. Twice has played a major role in like shaping the story into what it is now, as well as shaping the villains, and just thinking about the fact that this probably would not have happened if this guy didn't mess up and fire him. It's just freaking hilarious. And the fact that Hirokoshi may have taken the time to like put that in and show like the hypocrisy of what he's saying without realizing like that he's blaming Endeavor for everything that happened with Shigeraki, but that he doesn't know that, oh yeah, Twice, yeah, his real name is Jin Bubagawara, and how this guy kind of played a role in it. It's just amazing and fascinating just to see that aspect of My Hero Academia, where even like the smallest character and the smallest detail can have like a larger role to play in the story, or at least have a larger implication of how society is just really horrible, and how you don't know how bad someone has it until you realize that you played a part in the downfall. And he does not know, but if you were to learn that, oh, this all happened because I fired this guy, maybe I shouldn't be as harsh on Endeavor as I am right now. So it's just very interesting to just think about that what if concept. And now, finally, we get to the main gist of what I want to talk about in this discussion. In this chapter, we see that Best Jeanist Hawks in Endeavor, and something that I realized while reading this chapter is that Hawks still doesn't have his feathers, which is a little bit sad, but at least he's alive. But yes, Hawks doesn't have his feathers, and that they basically have a conversation. As I said, they're talking about how they're still hiding what Midoriya is, and how they're using him as bait, and how they're trying to protect him, and how they also assume that by having some connections to the people of Tartarus, that they thought that, oh, if they have a connection to Tartarus, they may have a connection to One for All, and that if they were to find these individuals, that maybe they'll be able to get clues about it, which unfortunately they have not. And that it seems as if they're not really going anywhere, and how they bring up this idea of like, oh, if All for One truly just wants to take One for All, then like he would do it right now and be on the offensive, which, spoilers, he is, but he's not doing it directly. Like, he's not going to be the one going after Deku, but he's going to send his minions to do it. And that's something else. And they also bring up the idea that the reasoning why he may be doing this and why he hasn't really taken on the offensive as far as they are aware is because they're still trying to hijack Shigaraki's body. All for One is trying to take over Shigaraki's body, which I think it's kind of like officially confirmed in this chapter. I think everyone who's reading My Hero Academia kind of like took a guess that, oh yeah, All for One is going to take over Shigaraki's body. Yeah, that's definitely what's going to happen. Me personally, I think he's going to attempt to do it, and he's going to fail because Shigaraki's hatred is going to overpower him. And that's something else that is brought up in this chapter, because they bring up the idea that, yeah, he wants to take over Shigaraki's body, and when he does that, then his next goal would be to steal One for All. But Hawks brings up this idea of like, yeah, there's something that's been bugging me about that. Yeah, he says that Shigaraki's rage is essential for taking it, but why? Why is Shigaraki's rage specifically doing it? And he also thinks to himself, like, and also, why didn't All for One already take his brother's quirk, even though he's been taking it for years? And Betsy brings up, so you're saying that hatred isn't enough? And Hawks is like, no, it's not that. It's not that hatred isn't enough. It's just that every time we've seen All for One, he's always smiling. He never stops smiling. And Endeavor brings up something missing in his soul, huh? And that is an interesting detail that they bring up. Because we know for a fact that when it comes to the quirk of One for All, it cannot be stolen by anyone, and it can only be like given willingly, which is something that I want to talk about a little bit more about in a future video. But just that fact alone, and also the fact that we learned a few chapters ago that the reasoning why All for One could not take All for One is because the predecessors inside of it and their wheels were strictly against All for One gaining it, so it's forcefully resisting him from him being able to take it. But that the idea of Shigaraki and his hatred is that his hatred and his will would be stronger than the wheels of One for All, and that's why he's trying to use Shigaraki as a vessel to take it. And that's like kind of what we learned. But what's even more interesting is that maybe it's not necessarily that All for One's will was stronger than One for All. Maybe it specifically has to do with hatred, and that maybe All for One lacks hatred, or probably, to be more specific, just lacks like the general like emotional competency. Maybe to the fact that All for One may be considered a clinical psychopath, that he was born with something missing in his soul, in his like body, in his heart, that allows for him to actually take One for All away. And that's very interesting, because that means that in the world of My Hero Academia, maybe the quirk of All for One is an inherently evil quirk, and that because All for One was born with that quirk of All for One, gosh, we need a name for him, that he is born inherently missing something like being able to hate. Because realistically speaking, we haven't seen him hate anyone. Even when he's literally going up against All Might, who literally destroyed his body, he doesn't really show that much anger, and all he does in that moment is taunt him, putting on a fake smile and saying, I killed your master. By the way, Shigaraki is your master's grandson. He said that with such conviction and such joy in his mouth that it's off-putting, and that's possibly because he physically cannot hate. Like, it is built inside of him for him to be unable to hate, and maybe he knows that, which is why he's fostering the hate in Shigaraki, and through that hatred, he's hoping that the hatred is strong enough to overcome the will of One for All, because we also learned that One for All sort of kind of has a will on its own, and even though it doesn't necessarily choose the people, that it could possibly choose who the power goes to, as we kind of saw that implication when Shigaraki and All for One tried to take All for One from Deku, because Deku, as well as the previous just acted against it, he was unable to take it. So it's very interesting to see that, and just the implications that just All for One just was born incapable of stealing One for All, that his plan of stealing it on his own would never work because of inherent defect in his own biology, which is amazing because that kind of ties into the ideals brought up that all men aren't created equal. And even if you are built, or even if you are born with this amazing quirk, hint also with Dabi, that even in this world where you have the capability of taking advantage of that power, all men are not created equal. You may have the greatest power, but you could just as much have that great power in a huge detriment that puts you not necessarily on an even playing ground, but could put you even lower even if you have a higher cap. So it's interesting how that plays into that ideas and how this could connect to the themes of My Hero Academia. So yeah, that's all I really wanted to talk about when it comes to this discussion. I really talked about a lot in this chapter, in this video, pertaining to like the female assassin and the fight between Deku, that one dude that indirectly caused all of this to go down by firing twice, and the fact that All For One may be a clinical psychopath and that he lacks a heart or hatred in his heart, which is needed for him to take One For All, which is his goal ever since he accidentally created it by giving it to his brother. So yeah, those are the main things that I really wanted to talk about in this chapter. But was there anything else that interested you in this chapter? And do you think that All Might actually died in this chapter? Because something that I brought up is that the grenade that was thrown in his car, it exploded his car. So do you think that All Might is alive? I think that he is. I think that he may be injured, but I think that he's still alive. And another question is, do you think that Deku is going to be captured by this female assassin, or do you think that he's going to be defeating him? And do you think that someone else is going to help in the fray? Do you think that possibly Gentle's going to come and help him? Do you think that another villain from Tartarus is going to fight Deku and they're going to overwhelm him? Leave your thoughts down in the comments down below. If you like this video, leave a like on this video. If you disliked it, do all that stuff. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, hit that notification bell to be notified for whenever I upload more content about My Hero Academia with discussions, reactions, and reviews. Do all that cool jazz, and hopefully I'll be able to catch you in my next video. Goodbye!